Bonjour à tous, je suis Jérémy d'Innovation Time et nous sommes aujourd'hui en compagnie de Giulia de Microcaps pour notre série spéciale sur les finalistes du Prix Stratégis réalisé en collaboration avec HEC Espace Entreprise. Alors Microcaps est une startup qui a été fondée en 2019 qui est aujourd'hui incubée à l'ETH de Zurich. So Giulia, can you talk a little bit about yourself and your life until Microcaps?
Yes, of course. So I studied material science at ETH Zurich in my bachelor's and master's. In between, I did internships in a larger company as well as in consulting. And at some point, I had to decide what I wanted to do for my master thesis, and I approached Microcaps. They offered me a very interesting topic. It was the development of a probiotics encapsulation system, and I was immediately interested. The team was super passionate and the topic was really interesting. So I joined them for my thesis and stayed ever since. Now I'm the CSO, so the Chief Scientific Officer of Microcaps, leading the R&D activities of the startup.
Okay, so did you actually achieve your doctorate, or was it in the process of the master itself?
So I didn't do a doctorate, just my master's. But I achieved at least a first prototype of the encapsulation system.
Okay, that's very interesting because we interviewed a few scientists back in other interviews. And so how is it to get up to the role of chief scientist in a startup? Just right after school, actually.
Well, pretty challenging, I'd say. I mean, I just started as, let's say, R&D scientist, and then quickly moved up to this role because at some point we have limited people working at the startup, and somebody has to take the responsibility. But it's a continuing learning process, I'd say, and yeah, you just take it day by day.
And the team was passionate, but what did really caught your interest in the first place to get interested in such a topic?
I would say I've always been a person very passionately about innovation to make the world and its products better, and Microcaps could offer this for the micro-encapsulation world, and for me it's always been a dream to work in such an environment to drive innovation.
Okay, and let me just think about the question. So, when did you join Microcaps actually? When was it?
I joined last year in May.
May?
Yeah, a little bit over a year ago.
Okay, and Microcaps was created, incorporated in March, so it was quite early on in the stage.
Yes.
But if I understand right, the idea in past interview said that came from 2015 during an incubation process. So did you learn about Microcaps in 2019, or how was the learning process of the encapsulation method in your studies? Because that's quite a very narrow subject to get on.
I mean, throughout my studies, I encountered microencapsulation quite early. It's a part of material science, and I knew that it has always been a part of research topics at ETH Zurich. And I know that Alessandro worked during his PhD on the scale-up of a microfluidic device, and I think it was always at the back of his head to make it an industrial application, because since Microcaps, basically, it has always been a research device that could never be used for industry, since the production scales are way too low.
Okay, and so your relation to entrepreneurship, your personal relation to it, when did it grow in your mind that at some point, was it something that you imagined that you would take part in drive innovation within a business or company later on, or was it something that you how did it happen that you joined so early in terms of personal experience and getting into a startup? Because most of the startups actually fail. And why not this one? And why this one at the same time?
I don't even know it precisely, but somehow throughout my studies, I learned more and more about startups, and at some point I decided this is a pretty interesting world. And I also joined the ETH Entrepreneurs Club. I took some lectures and, let's say, workshops in entrepreneurship, and my interest grew more and more because, yeah, you hear about a lot of failure stories, but like in the meantime, you also learn how much those people learned about growing a business, about the business life itself, and yeah, I was intrigued.
Okay, very interesting. So let's talk about Microcaps. Can you pitch the idea of Microcaps to, let's say, just a kid, anyone in the street? Because we were talking about something that most common people won't actually get into at any point in their life.
I could try.
Let's go.
So Microcaps does micro-encapsulation for the pharmaceutical, food and cosmetics industry. Microcapsules are capsules in the micrometer range, and you can find them in a lot of products. The strength of microcaps is that we can produce them all at exactly the same size. This has the benefit that they all behave in exactly the same way. So you can control how they, for example, dissolve in the body or how they behave in a, I don't know, skin lotion. And maybe the best example to think about it is if you have a glass of water and you put in one huge cube of ice or crushed ice, the cooling curve is not the same for both. So there you see the difference that comes with the size. And yeah, there are many other examples, but they're a little bit more advanced.
And how was the problem? What is trying to solve? Because I can see the benefit, and I think most people can do. But what was the problem in the industry having encapsulation that were not the same size before?
That you cannot control the release. This becomes very important in the pharmaceutical area. If you think of drugs where you need a really precise dosage, if you cannot produce capsules at exactly the same size, you cannot control their behavior precisely. And the problem was basically that there was no industrially or no device available which could produce those microcapsules at exactly the same size at industrial scale so far.
Okay. An example maybe of something going wrong or a risk induced by this difference inside?
Maybe there's not a risk, but you can think of it in another way. For example, patients with schizophrenia, for example, they have to take a pill now every day because you cannot inject them this medication so far. This is very cumbersome for the patient as well, for the person giving this drug to the patient, since they have to have this discussion every day. People tend to forget it or are not sure whether they have to take this drug. Whereas if you could make an injection that this patient had to take once a month, where you could precisely produce capsules in there, where you could control the dosage of each capsule and how it dissolves in the body, you can do it once per month and not every day. And it becomes a better life for the patient as well as for the health personnel.
Okay, I think now we get a really great picture of what it's all about. So, talking about the startup itself, the industry, so your main clients are big pharmaceuticals, right?
As well as big food and cosmetics companies, yes.
Okay, and so how did it drive your market, the growth of your company? How was it to sell this product and to develop it as the lead scientist you are, considering the challenges and the requirements and what they were expecting from such a process?
That's a really tricky question. So I mean, we constantly learn, and I have to say our business model changed a little bit, also in which industries we tackled from the beginning. But what I can say, we always try to go to the industry, talk to, I don't know, 50 companies within that industry. It can be also more specific, for example, in the food industry, we talk about, for example, probiotics customers. We tackle those first. We always take one larger industry into smaller segments. And we start by a joint R&D project. So as soon as the customer says, yes, we want a micro-encapsulation system, we produce some capsules as they want them to be. And as soon as they're happy, we go into a larger project with them where we optimize the capsule system as well as the device itself. I mean, we have a machine which is ready to sell, but for each capsule system, you have to make adaptations to it. So yeah, as soon as the second part, this larger project is done, we go into the third part of our business strategy, which is to sell our device, our machine, to the customer.
Okay, talking about growth still, you are just over a year old, and yet you already have a lead scientist, a CEO, a CFO, and even a board of directors. And so you joined the adventure early on, but I think that you might have been involved in the following process of development. So how was it to see the company grow, and what was the challenges within the company, inside, not talking about the market, what you had to develop or not, but really in terms of personal experience, interpersonal experience, of seeing a startup grow so fast?
It's actually very interesting because, as I said before, usually you take it day by day and you just continue to work as you did before, and at some point you realize, okay, we cannot continue doing it this way. For example, in the beginning, if you're 3 or 4 people, you always talk with each other, you make every decision all together. But at some point you're like, okay, we cannot keep doing this because it takes up too much time if you involve 9 or 10 people. So what we usually do is then have a meeting where we all discuss the current situation and reevaluate our, procedures and workflows. And we realize pretty quickly that we have to separate people into, let's say, divisions or company segments, and to make also these decisions faster, because you cannot run your decision by everybody every time anymore. And we're constantly learning and adapting our workflows to our growth. And it's also interesting that you started as one person per division, and now we are 4 people and with reporting lines.
Okay, and so talking about the future, what are the goals of Microcaps for the following months and the following years, and your place within the company?
So we will move to out of ETH Zurich very soon. So we're planning to have our own facilities. This takes up a lot of time and planning. And we also want, as of now, we have a lot of smaller projects with customers. We want to take a lot of them into the second stage where we have a half a year project with them. Also tackling a few other industries, because right now we focused on 2 or 3 of those segments I mentioned before. And we also want to grow the team, especially the engineering and formulations team, because that's where we need the most people.
Why? Is it the place you need the most people?
Because, our core technology is our machine, our device. So of course we need engineers to design it, to make the adjustments for each different encapsulation system. Even if we produce our capsules, you need some post-processing, which you need to adapt to each capsule system. And you need scientists that develop the capsule systems for the clients. So there we need the most people.
Okay. And if we can talk maybe about how do you communicate about your story, about your product today, and how is it to get into the market and face the clients? So I understand, and you expressed that you were trying to get them in group somehow and tackle industry by industry, trying subdividing it. But how is the approach? How is the first moment with a client when you present this idea?
That varies a lot. I mean, many of the customers we have or try to get, they already know about microencapsulation and maybe already do microencapsulation by themselves. And it really depends how well they're succeeding with their own methodologies. A lot of the customers said, oh, well, yes, these are the improvements we need. And then you start talking a little bit about everything, the development, how we would see it, how they see it. And some of them, they then want a collaboration, others postpone the decisions, and some others, they're not interested at this stage. But so far, we got very high interest from every customer we approached.
Okay, and let's talk about the Prix Stratégis. So, why did you participate in this event, in this challenge, and how was it? How was it to experience students coming from Lausanne in Zurich to talk about your company? How was it?
Well, of course, we wanted to participate because it's a very well-known competition. It's super old. And yeah, we really like the format that students come to you and basically present your company to somebody else. And for us, it was very interesting to have the students there and also to see how interested they were. And yeah, it was really funny for us. We had a great day.
And what did you learn from the process? What do you remember and what will you retain from this experience?
I think the most how to see, I mean, we try to bring the passion we have for the company to other people and to see how that sparked, basically. I think that will stay the most with me.
And so it sparked well, right?
Apparently.
Because today you're one of the finalists, and if you do get selected as the finalist and win the Strategist Prize, what would it mean for you and for your development in the following month?
Well, it brings us one step closer to our big goal. I mean, every prize we win, and also with the more people get to know us, the better it is. And we can push our development of the capsule systems.
Because there are a lot of prizes. The Minute 2 Pitch 2019, the WA, the Vivier 2020, the 2020 ZKB Pioneers Prize. So it's a large collection. And so we wish you all the luck for you to win this prize and add it to the list. And maybe you have one last thing that we didn't talk about and that you would like to express. One last question that we didn't cover. One thing you want to talk about.
I think I'm fine. I hope that, I could spark your interest in microencapsulation and that it's basically all over the place. You just don't realize it. And we're trying to improve those capsules for you.
Thank you very much. So, thank you for being here. Merci d'avoir regardé. Et cet épisode très intéressant, donc avec Giulia de Microcaps sur la micro-encapsulation et finaliste du Prix Stratégis de 2020. N'hésitez pas à nous rejoindre pour la grande finale et la cérémonie de clôture qui se déroulera le 15 septembre prochain au Musée Olympique de Lausanne. N'hésitez pas en attendant également à nous suivre sur les réseaux sociaux, Instagram, Facebook, et LinkedIn notamment, avec notre site web innovation-time.com pour plus d'informations.